Cool. Hi, I'm Andy Carvel. I work for Soundcloud, looking at mobile growth and more recently international growth quite a lot. So yeah, it's great to be here today. As James said, I've sort of been attending these summits for quite a while, and I found them actually to be incredibly useful in terms of the kind of learning that I've got out of it and the practical stuff that I've been able to apply at SoundCloud in terms of mobile growth. Today, I'd like to present a little bit about like a framework that I've been using to consider how to approach growth in a sort of a holistic manner. First, a little bit about SoundCloud. Just for those of you who haven't heard of us, we're a platform designed for creators of audio of all kinds to reach their audiences and really to enable anyone, anywhere to discover music and audio, on whatever platform they're using. So we're not a mobile-only platform. We also have web, and we're increasingly on sort of other connected devices such as Sonos. Our primary apps are on iPhone and Android, but we also have a mobile web, HTML5 mobile website, and we're also available on a bunch of other devices. This is what I'd like to present today. This is what I call the mobile growth stack, and it's basically I've presented this same slide in numerous forms at other summits and other conferences, and it's generally got like a lot of interest from the audience. It's generally what people ask me about afterwards. So actually thought I'd come back today and present this in a little more detail. It's really a work in progress. It's gone through several iterations. And it's really just a way that I use to consider the mobile ecosystem and how one might approach developing a mobile growth strategy. So I'll just leave it up there for a sec because there's quite a lot of information on there, and then I'll go through the various layers in that in a little more detail and call out a few points, and then if there's time at the end, I'll show a little bit about how we've applied some of this at SoundCloud and also to look at how we might contrast that with another like popular app that's out there. So what you see on the framework there, we've got three layers: acquisition, engagement, and monetization. Engagement and retention being the middle layer. And I've got like two layers that kind of transcend that. One being retargeting, because I think it can be applied to like all three layers of the all three different business objectives. And international, which I think also cuts through everything. And it's a lot more than just localizing your app. And then underneath, underpinning all three layers is like got to be a solid base of analytics. And so that's where I'll start. Really, it's great to be coming on right after Patrick, because I think Patrick and Priori are doing really great things with data. And I think that having data and understanding and then leveraging that to drive real impact is really key to underpin any kind of growth strategy. Now, what I'm basically presenting here is not a prescriptive, like you must tick all these boxes in order to have an understanding of your app or the ecosystem, but it's rather like a set of things which you might consider. Now, some of these things will be more or less important depending on your particular app or your particular business or the stage in your life cycle, but it's probably worth considering all of these things. Should you be tracking them? Should you have competencies in this area? Or is it something that you might want to develop over time? And that goes actually for the whole framework. It's not that you need to be kind of doing stuff in all of these boxes or having initiatives running across like all of the lines of the framework, but they should probably be considering all of these aspects and how they might be able to work holistically together to drive more growth or to layer on incremental growth over time. So these are the kind of things that we consider at SoundCloud for sure. And you know, we're doing more or less in most of these areas, and I'll come on to like SoundCloud specifics in a minute. But and there's probably other things that I may have missed out here, and so as I said, this is kind of like a work in progress, and I'd be very keen to get input if you think things are missing on any of these. So moving on to acquisition, these were like the kind of core areas which I consider to be like pretty key in a user acquisition strategy. You'll see that paid channels I've got there is just like one box in the framework. Quite often when people talk about user acquisition, they talk sort of primarily about paid acquisition, about advertising. Yes, that's definitely important. Yes, it's part of our strategy at SoundCloud too, but it's definitely not the only part of like holistic acquisition strategy. We're able to use, like for example, cross-sell quite extensively at SoundCloud. That's maybe not so so applicable if you only have like maybe one property and you're just trying to drive like one app to the top of the charts and you don't have like a website or HTML5 mobile web to drive other traffic to, but it's still something you could consider. Similarly with partnerships. I'll call a couple of these out in more detail. A/B testing of App Store assets, so App Store optimization. This is something that we definitely learned from Stefan at one of his earlier talks. So we've been using A/B testing technology. We built basically a fake version of the App Store, which we drive some traffic to in order to A/B test assets kind of more more scientifically. And this has enabled us to essentially measure the conversion rate of specific items on the App Store, so screenshots, copy, things like that. And it's made a real difference in terms of the overall conversion rate of our App Store presence. Partnerships is another way you can really drive a lot of acquisition. This is something that maybe SoundCloud is not doing so much of yet, but you can see like some of the other players out there are doing a lot in that space, and it's definitely a way you can really boost your reach, possibly at at the expense of some rev share in order to drive growth. So it's like, this is what I mean about approaching growth in a sort of holistic manner. You might ask like, why is monetization on the framework at all? Because it's not strictly a growth topic, but actually your monetization strategy will definitely affect how fast you can grow. Integrations, we do a lot of these at SoundCloud, for example, so we're like tightly integrated with Twitter, with Facebook, with Tumblr. That works very well for us because we're a content platform and we sort of have content which is inherently viral and easy to share. And we leverage that in our growth strategy in order to reach more users and to acquire more users. So, again, it's not something that's necessarily applicable to everyone, but it's something that you can consider when building out a strategy. Cross-promotion, I already touched on a little bit. We cross-promote heavily from our mobile website, which is what you see on the left, to our native apps, because we see more engagement, more retention on our native apps. So when people land on our mobile website, we have an upsell, like you see on the left there, which really drives a lot of traffic and a lot of installs of our mobile apps, which then drives us higher up the charts, which kind of creates a positive feedback loop. So moving on to engagement and retention. Yeah, I sort of identified these areas as like kind of pretty key kind of levers for driving engagement and retention of mobile apps. So onboarding flow in particular is sort of a big focus for us. Here's a couple of examples from companies that I think do it pretty well. That's SoundHound on the left. They've got like a nice interactive tutorial mode, so the first time you launch the app, it's like calling out specific features, specific things which you might want to do, and it's really kind of easing the new user into the app, making sure they have a good first experience to boost engagement, to boost retention, and hopefully get them back on day 2. Example on the right is a welcome email from Duolingo. Again, emails, really critical part of like that sort of conversation you can start with the user, really to ensure that user has a good experience when they first join and that hopefully they come back. So that kind of leads into CRM in general, which is a bigger topic around like push notifications, email, like bringing timely, personalized information to users to drive like more engagement and to bring them back to the app at the right time. And that should include things like being aware of time zones. So this is another thing where international would cut right across this whole framework, because it's not just about having your app localized to a particular language, but like making sure you're not sending someone a push message in the middle of the night is pretty important too. So I'm going to hit on to monetization. Monetization is something that we're kind of really only at the start of our journey at SoundCloud. We've been monetizing on the creator side for quite some time. So if you're a creator of music or audio, you can buy a pro account on SoundCloud and you can host more audio there. But on the listener side, we've just rolled out on SoundCloud in the US, which is like our ad-supported. It's like basically we're serving ads now in the US against certain content, so that we can basically enable certain brands to reach people who are listening to music on SoundCloud, and that's something that is part of our strategy, as we'll roll that out like globally. Right now, it's only available in the US. when we look at the framework there, there's obviously a lot more involved than just deciding whether to be ad-supported or to go with subscriptions or some kind of hybrid model. Things like relevant payment methods, which again hits international as well. If you're considering like being available globally, then you better make sure that people globally can pay for your service if you plan to monetize them. Virtual currency is pretty useful. Pretty useful. It's used a lot in games, for example, but I think it's not something that's only applicable to games. There's a lot of research which actually shows that disintermediating a purchase by putting a virtual currency between the user and the good actually can provide other benefits. Basically, it can confuse the user because the user can no longer really judge the value effectively. So that's maybe a little controversial. Dynamic pricing, also a controversial topic, but can definitely be powerful. And yeah, of course, you should be always optimizing for conversion. Now, I've touched on retargeting only slightly. Retargeting, I think, can really kind of cut through all the layers of this, because you can like be retargeting users who maybe saw an advert for your app but never installed it, so like hence driving acquisition. You can be retargeting users who maybe showed some engagement, but maybe they've lapsed, or that you want to drive them to a higher level of engagement. And definitely on the monetization side, you can retarget people at the point where maybe they were about to purchase, and you can sort of push them back into the purchase funnel. Or maybe they've already made a purchase and you want to sort of inspire a repeat purchase, so you might want to send them a coupon, something like that. So I think like retargeting really cuts across all three layers. So some examples of monetization, I think like Clash of Clans does it particularly well, also using a virtual currency. A couple of examples on the right there of sort of relevant payment methods. So in Brazil, they have this thing called boleto. It's like a barcode system, so basically you can buy credits with these. You get these barcodes, and it's essentially, yeah, it's basically like a very common form of payment. So if you don't take boleto payment in your app, or don't enable that in some way, then you're missing out on a big slice of the Brazilian monetization potential. So back to the stack a little bit. I'd like to just sort of explain just briefly how how SoundCloud has sort of applied the stack, or actually that's kind of the wrong way of putting it. It's really about how SoundCloud's strategy can be analyzed using the stack. So, like we make, as I've mentioned, a lot of use of cross-sell, App Store optimization. We're pretty active in the top two levels of the stack. But I'd say like where we're really just starting out is on the monetization side. So yeah, we've rolled out advertising in the US. We've had creator subscriptions for quite some time. And we've talked about like rolling out a consumer subscription at some point in the future. We're pretty weak on international right now, in that like we're really just sort of starting out. We've got our app available in a couple of languages. We just recently translated our Android app into Portuguese, for example. But we're really sort of a long way behind a lot of other apps that are out there in terms of the internationalization potential. And the same goes for like the kind of payment methods that we collect. We're still sort of at the start of that journey, and so the sort of monetization level of the stack is something where we've got to sort of develop new competencies over time, and the same with international. And we're also not doing a lot with retargeting yet. Now I had a stab at also analyzing Clash of Clans just briefly using the same stack. So it's probably like interesting just to look very quickly at the differences. I'd say Clash of Clans, it's like #1 in the monetization charts for like most of this year on iOS. So they're clearly doing a really great job of monetization. They're clearly doing a lot of LTV modeling on the analytics side. I think what's interesting is that if you talk to Supercell, they'd probably say that they're actually more of a retention company than a monetization company, and that their real strength is in retaining users by giving them a really great experience and keeping them coming back. And I think if you can nail that, monetization generally follows. I'm not sure what they're doing with retargeting. It's pretty hard to know from the outside. This is really just from outside observation. It's not from any like inside knowledge. So it's this should all be taken just as just my impression and my sort of analysis of them from just looking at them from the outside. Yeah, they're widely localized. They're available in a ton of languages, and they're also doing some interesting cross promotion with Gung Ho, who I think they're sort of technically partnered with through SoftBank, who's their majority stakeholder. So they're doing some really interesting cross-promotion in Asia as well. So that was just sort of my stab at using the stack to sort of analyze a popular app in the marketplace. So yeah, this is basically the framework that I use to consider mobile growth in a holistic manner. And I'd be really interested to hear from you guys, like, you know, what you think of it, how you might improve it. Yeah, any suggestions or questions? Thanks.